Hi, everybody, and thanks so much for joining us for the Bend Film Festival's 2021 virtual online programming. Today, I have the great pleasure of talking to the filmmakers of this wonderful shorts program, Breaking the Mold. So I'm going to introduce them all to you. Please welcome the makers of Miss Alma Thomas, Life in Color, Sherry Galkey and John Gann. The filmmakers of Comeback Girls, Jacob Siegel Burrell, Jump to Zero filmmaker Drew Herder, filmmaker of For the People, Brady Holden, and also Kendra Jacobson, who made the lovely film My Century. I'm going to start with one of the things that's so great about this collection of films is they showcase women, you know, that in not just women, very, very interesting women who are doing really unique things and in a very diverse way. One of the first films in this series is Miss Alma Thomas, Life in Color. And Sherry and John, I'm just curious to hear from you how you came to find Alma Thomas's story and how were you able to connect to tell her story?
John, why don't you start with our origin story?
Sure. So the day the lockdown began, I lost all of my work and I had nothing to do. And after about 30 days, my friends were like, you need to do something because you're driving your husband crazy. So they put me in contact with two curators who were putting together an exhibition of Alma Thomas's work, which is traveling to 4 cities around the country. And they said, I think we want a movie about Alma. And I said, well, I haven't produced a movie in 20 years. I've been working with festivals for the past 20. And so I said, sure, why not? I have nothing else to do right now but bake bread and make cookies. So I said, yeah, I'll do it. So first thing I did was find a director and contacted Sherry.
Yeah, and I got an email just out of the blue. John and I have actually never met. I've never met in person any of the people that worked on this film because we produced it all during quarantine. But he told me about Alma Thomas, and I had done a previous film about women artists, surrealist artists, and so that's why he thought I'd be a good fit. But I didn't know anything about her, and he had the link to her Wikipedia page. I clicked on it, and I just 5 minutes later, I was madly in love with her story and her work. And I really related to her on many levels, but you know, the fact that she was a Black woman artist trying to, you know, become known at a time when, you know, coming out of being born in 1891 in the South and you know, dealing with racism and all that. I mean, I had fought the good fight, you know, starting in the 70s in the feminist movement in terms of women artists being recognized. And she was just such an amazing role model. And she kind of came, her career really climaxed, interesting choice of words, in the 70s. And yet I hadn't known about her. So that was sort of like tragic that I didn't know her story, and I should have, because I was championing women artists. So anyway, that's just how it all began.
I'm just going to pause for a second because we have a new filmmaker joining us, and I can tell the tech people to edit that out. Hi, I'm T-Fly. I'm the moderator for this conversation. Can you tell me your name? Because I'm not seeing it on my... Oh, you're lying on the mat. Can you tell me how to say your name?
Yes, it's Asali.
Asali, okay. And it's Asali Eccles?
Yeah.
Asali Eccles. Okay.
Thanks. Apologies for being late.
That's okay. Well, okay, so game back on. Okay. Oh no, I should on time. Okay. I really loved what you had to say, Sherry, about that this like really phenomenal artist who's just not been championed enough, which is a lot of these films have a lot of that theme going through them, you know, is women who are not being championed and how much harder it is for women to do these things that they're really passionate about. So actually I'm going to ask you, Asali, you have this beautiful, talking about championing, you have this beautiful film about, and correct me if I'm wrong, your subject, she's doing taekwondo.
Actually, jujitsu.
Jiu-jitsu. Yeah. Can you tell me a little how you came to tell her story of learning this martial art?
Yeah. So it was not expected. I mean, I wasn't planning to make a film about jujitsu or but that's how films work, right? So we just met at a party and became friends. And she was trying to build up her aerobic strength for jujitsu. And I've been a runner my whole life. And so she was like, "Oh, can you please take me running?" And I said, "Okay." And so we went running together, and she couldn't run at all. We would go like half a mile and then she would stop. And, we'd do walking, and slowly her strength built up and we did a lot more running, and we basically became regular running friends. And I think something about the running friendship, it allows you to be more vulnerable, and sort of your friendship deepens quickly because you're just out on the trail for miles, sweating. And I don't know, we became very close, and I realized she just had this incredible story, and her perspective on life was so interesting and inspiring, not in a cheesy way, but just, I don't know, genuinely inspiring. And so I couldn't stop thinking about how I wanted to make a film about her, but that's a very odd ask of a friend, "Oh, can I film your life?" But then, she kept telling other people her story. And at one point she told me, "I really want to mentor younger women. I think I have a powerful story to tell. I think my story can be useful to others." And that was sort of when I felt comfortable asking her if we could work on this film together. And I definitely thought of it as a collaboration. She was, helping me throughout. And during the editing process, I would show her cuts. I didn't want to feel like I was taking her story and doing something with it. I wanted it to be, me using the tools of my trade to help her tell her story. So.
Oh, lovely. Well, that comes through. It's so personal, from her first person point of view, and very intimate. You can tell that you had a wonderful relationship with her. That's so interesting. I love that both of you have found people who inspired you and then started finding their stories. And I want to ask you, Jacob, about Comeback Girls, because how did you find these lovely young women on bicycles in Africa?
Yeah, so my brother Isaac and I have been working with World Bicycle Relief for almost a decade now, going every year and filming different stories of people who have received bikes through their various programs, whether it be students or health workers or entrepreneurs. And that year we had gone to Malawi and had heard some stories coming from this school that there was a group of young mothers who have come back to school, and they were sort of on our radar as something we wanted to ask folks more about. And the first day we were at the school, we sat down with a circle of these young mothers and just started talking to them and hearing their stories. And we're blown away with how open they were with us as two bearded white boys from California who had just showed up at their school. And they were saying things to us that I don't know anybody else. I've never met anybody else who's been that open. And so that night when we sort of circled the wagons and looked back at what we had filmed, we talked with Matt Pierce, who's the creative director at World Bicycle Relief, and said, we need to change the schedule for this shoot because this is a story that needs to get told and we can't do it in one day. We need to spend a couple days here. And so it was an incredible opportunity to have a client who we're working with at a commercial level see the value in telling a story and say, hey, we can throw this schedule not out the window, but sort of move things around to give it the time that it deserves. And so yeah, we spent, I think, 3 or 4 days with Maggie and Febby, just sort of going through their daily routines, filming them at school and with their friends, and then interviewing them as well. And yeah, it was just incredible to hear their stories and how open and genuine they were, given how difficult what they were talking about was. So yeah, we just felt incredibly lucky as filmmakers to have had that opportunity and they'd be given that trust, because that doesn't happen very often, I don't think.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it comes across that they're very open, especially after talking about feeling shunned, being young mothers and still wanting to go to school, and then these bikes help them get there. It was really beautiful. It's wonderful, actually. One of the things all these films have in common is this intimacy of the storytelling that all of you have tapped into. And another story is a little different, a story about being on bikes in Jump to Zero. Drew, how did you find these amazing women? You know, we go from bikes in riding bikes for school in Africa to riding bikes to kind of lessening your footprint when you're an outdoor adventurist. How did you come to tell these young women's stories?
Totally. It's actually the two producers that knew these girls, and they didn't even really know them personally. They just like knew them through Instagram. They knew that they had done a ton of base jumping and skydiving. They're like, oh, we should like try to connect with these people and film this little segment. And so the first time I ever met these girls was I had my pop top out in Castle Valley, and it was like 4 a.m. in the morning. And I just whipped up breakfast, and they all came in from their cars because they gotten in late. And so we all met like the morning of like shooting our whole film. We had party poppers who were popping those off, like getting them psyched and just trying to keep the energy high for the whole day. And man, all three of those girls are just like so mentally tough. And that was like crazy inspiring for me to just like be a part of that whole thing. I thought it was insane.
So I thought it was a little insane too.
I've never shot anything like that before.
How many jumps did they do total?
They did 3 total.
In one day. So the other filmmakers, I'm going to just to recover because I feel like I want to tell people 3, they were in Moab and they rode their bikes up to do base jumping.
Yeah, the whole idea was basically like all the base jumpers drive to all these areas and jump off of them because there's so many areas close by, but nobody ever really bikes to the base zone. So we thought it'd just be cool to like bike everywhere, jump off, repack the parachutes, bike to the next spot, and just like keep doing it and just see what we'd be able to do. That was just kind of like a one day mission. It's kind of crazy.
And then the next day you just lie down for the next 24 hours.
Something like that. Yeah.
I can't imagine doing much else after that long day.
Yeah. And it's just such a beautiful landscape too.
Yeah.
To hang out in. Yeah.
Yeah. And to think on that level of your impact on the earth when you're wanting to follow something you're passionate about. It's interesting. It's really interesting. We don't have the filmmakers from All Bodies on Bikes here, which would have been a nice transition, but Brady Holden with For the People, that film made me hungry and wanting to make broth. And I'm curious, how did you come to tell this beautiful story?
Yeah, so this is my partner, Des, and we co-directed For the People. And this is our little one, Navarra. Yeah, so actually Des came to me with a little bit of the story. It was one of her good friends, Mari. She was telling me, Des and I had just made a film for a nonprofit in Portland, and we wanted to make something else because there wasn't a lot of other work happening at the beginning of the pandemic. And she was telling me about how her friend was making pho from her porch and serving it to her community and selling it and then using the proceeds for social justice campaigns and organizations. And as much as I was excited about the social justice element of it, I was really interested in like getting into capturing the process of somebody cooking. Like food has always been like something I've always enjoyed filming and creating. And so I liked the idea of finding that balance of like a film that would have a purpose and told like a current story, but also captured some of those more intimate moments that we were all like living during at the beginning of the pandemic and still are. But I was interested in seeing what that looked like. So Mari gave us permission, and luckily we did it safely and got to spend time with her and her family. We just spent 2 long weekends at the beginning of the pandemic filming her cooking broth. And it's like she's making these broths that take 36 hours. So we're cooking overnight, just filming the little, some of the smaller moments throughout. And then like her husband's helping her jar all the broth, and then her little daughter's helping her cook, and her parents are coming in to help out. And Mari's story is really deep just because she's first generation Vietnamese American. And like, unfortunately, the film only touches on that part of the story. But it's a really layered piece that I think both Des and I are really proud of. Is there anything else you want?
Yeah, and then the timing is kind of like a big part of the story. Obviously, that was, let's see, June of 2020. So all, nationally, everybody's sort of like, what's happening? We've been sheltering in place for several months. people are trying to figure out how to maintain their mental health, how to make money if they've lost work. And we're here in Portland, and June 2020 is when we were filming. There's like Portland's on national news for protests in the streets, and thousands of people on the bridge, in protests for Black Lives Matter and George Floyd. And so it was like this really huge kind of moment for us as people in Portland, just feeling the impact and the weight of the pandemic, and then also this like uprising of social justice and us being in a pretty big focal spotlight nationally. And here's, a pretty, solid, prolific member of the community in Southeast Portland, living off Hawthorne with her family, and being a very proud Oregonian, having grown up here, and a woman of color, a woman of Asian American descent, and, getting creative with food and centering her identity with it, and also serving the community that is like, all of us are trying to get through this pandemic together. And then, going an extra step and saying, hey, any money and proceeds from this food project is going to make it's going into like a direct action fund for Black Lives Matter. So it was just this powerful moment, and a lot of energy during that month that we filmed here.
Yeah. It also kind of serves a little bit like a time capsule, right? Like of like what we were going through in that period of time, which was so beautiful. And the way that I loved those little moments when she would gift people. Oh, I want to gift this to you. And, because it was the sentiment of what people were feeling at that, and hopefully we're all still feeling that, generosity, but it was this beautiful little snapshot of a moment in time, this really beautiful moment in time, with this rich, beautiful broth that she's making, this wonderful food, that has so much prana and health in it. It's really lovely. Yeah. The last film in this series is really this lovely film to kind of, the list of these films start with this wonderful older Black artist, right? This wonderful art, and then they end with this 100-year-old really woman who has so much spirit. My century, Kendra Jacobson. Can you tell me a little bit about your subject and how you came to make this movie?
She's 101 now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all right. She just had her 101st birthday in April. Luckily, I met her pre-pandemic, so I could spend time with her in person. We filmed in 2019, right before her 99th birthday. And I met her out at a bar at about 10 o'clock at night. She was dancing and I was in love immediately. And then I was talking to my neighbor. Her husband was in the band I was going to see. That's why I was there. And she's like, oh yeah, she's 98 years old. I was like, wait, what? And she's like, and that's her boyfriend. He's 80. And I was all, wait, what? And then so like I just sort of was, and then my neighbors sort of talking in my ear and telling me about this woman. And she was one of the first draftswomen in the history of America. She went to school she helped build part of fighter planes for World War II. She like broke all these glass ceilings and absolutely doesn't think it's a big deal at all, which is just wild. And I mean, the movie could have been 6 hours long because she had so many stories. I mean, after I was done filming, she's like, and when I was a jewelry designer in Paris, and I was just like, okay, okay, no, it's good. It's good. It's fine. So I was really lucky because I got to spend about 4 full days with her, just me and her talking and filming her. And then her family found old footage of the family from when the 50s, 40s, and 50s. So I got that and a whole bunch of archival. And I actually found the piece of machinery she was building in archival footage and got that in there. So I was really excited. And I've never been so nervous as when her family saw it in my entire life, and they loved it. So I was very happy. Watching her watch it was just, I was so scared. But absolutely just the most she's a pistol. She's fun. She's funny. She knows her worth, and she's just kind of a really huge inspiration, I think, to a lot of women. She did have a leg up. You know, she grew up in a middle class family and went to college and all that good stuff, but she is very cool. She's had a very cool life and done a lot of things. And yeah, I love her. I can't wait to see her again. It's been a minute since I've seen her.
Yeah, she's fun. I mean,
She is fun.
and I will tell you, one of the things I was so surprised at how young she sounds. You know,
Yeah.
vibrancy in her voice, and like not even,
Hmm.
you know, physically, you know, you could tell she's slowing down a little bit, but she doesn't really seem it like in her
She wouldn't let me film it, but she was still doing exercises on the floor
wow.
every day, like doing her stretches on the floor every day and living alone. I think now she's going to be moving into assisted at 101, but she was living alone with her own apartment, own kitchen, everything till now. So, you know, and she's still complete, you know, she's still mostly lucid, you know, she has her moments, but she's an amazing person. I absolutely adore her. Absolutely adore her.
Um, yeah, these films all collectively showcase such an amazing array of women. And I'm curious what kind of films you guys are all working on in the future. Like, have you found new subjects? Are you working with these films more? Um, would you be willing to start, Sherry and John, telling us what your plans are for this film and maybe what your next adventures look like?
I am working on my first feature documentary, which I'm really excited about. It's about 1970s feminist performance art, and it's about a movement that has not fully been recognized, but I think was very instrumental in laying groundwork for, you know, just new ways for art to be in relationship to society and to people. There's elements of autobiography, there's elements of activism within it. And it came out of Los Angeles and an organization called the Woman's Building. And I was involved in that those years, started doing performance myself in 1974 and came to Los Angeles to be part of the Woman's Building in 1975. So it's a very personal story. So it's a story about an art movement, but it's through a personal lens, through sort of my trajectory as a person, kind of. It's called Acting Like Women. And so it's about, you know, just thinking about what it is to act like women and how we were questioning that then, and what it is to find the authentic self through art.
Nice. Lovely. What about you, John?
I'm going to sit with Miss Alma for a little bit here. Actually last month was the beginning of the year of Alma Thomas. It celebrates the 100th anniversary of her being the first graduate from Howard University with a fine arts degree. There's all kinds of stuff I'm in Washington, D.C., where she was based. There's so much going on this year with that. The museum the film is part of this museum tour, which goes through 2022. So I'm happy about that. But we just got a grant to make the film accessible to every school child in the district, which is fantastic. We just are striking a distribution deal to get it into libraries across the country. And so I'm going to sit with Miss Alma for a little while to make sure that the story goes as far and as wide as I can get it.
Oh, fantastic. Because it's a beautiful story, and it's lovely to hear that children will be introduced to her art. Her art is so breathtaking and
it's so relatable. Especially, it's interesting because when I just saw the exhibition for the first time 2 weeks ago in Norfolk, and they're doing a huge campaign or connection with kids, and they had these great little stickers of Alma, kind of like a cartoon version of her. And I sent one to Sherry, and she's like, "It's the greatest sticker I've ever received." It's so cute. But I'm glad that her message and her story is getting out to younger people. I think it's important.
yeah, wonderful. And Asali, how about you? What are your plans for this film? Does it have other places it's going to be seen? And what other things are you working on?
Yeah, the film's been around the world at this point. So yeah, a few more festivals, but sort of simmering down with that. But yeah, I'm editing a feature doc on the underground press movement in the Bay Area in the 70s and 80s. And then I'm also working on another short portrait type film about a woman who started a pie baking business for her neighbors during COVID. So I'm looking forward to seeing For the People. It sounds like a similar sort of theme. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Some inspiration for you. And Jacob, how about you? Does Comeback Girls have other platforms it's going to be seen at? And are you working on other things?
Yeah, we've been sharing Comeback Girls throughout this year with World Bicycle Relief, sort of as a fundraising piece and conversation starter for a lot of the programs that they're working on building out right now. And we're editing some more footage from them for another story that was shot in Zimbabwe this year. But sort of the next film we're working on is we grew up in Santa Barbara and became aware during COVID of a program down there called Cycling Without Age. That's a chapter of a global organization that basically works with local riders and electric pedicabs and goes to old folks' homes and takes people out on bike rides. And especially during COVID, it's been really interesting to see the interaction between that program and a lot of the homes in Santa Barbara. When other things were shutting down, they were actually fighting to keep these rides going, because with people being stuck in their rooms and families not being able to visit, sometimes getting out on a pedicab ride for a half hour was the only human interaction or fresh air that they got. And so while there were risks associated with it, the mental health benefits of getting out into the world were pretty marked. And the stories coming from the residents of the home saying like, you need to keep doing this. This is like the thing that's keeping me alive right now, was really interesting, because I think a lot of times when we think about bikes, we think about younger people. And this was a really interesting sort of flipping the script, looking at how the bike comes back in and can provide that similar experience that it does for kids, for people when they're in that last chapter of their life. And so it's been a little bit of stop and go, as COVID has allowed us to film with older folks and not, but yeah, hoping to continue to tell that story and sort of look at those mental health benefits of the bicycle for people who maybe aren't even the ones riding it themselves.
Yeah, lovely. I love that. It ties into your other film as well, and how bikes are the future, right?
Amen.
Yeah. And what about you, Drew? Are you showing this film in other venues, and what else are you working on?
Yeah, totally. I think after it shows here at this festival, the Lady Alliance is going to put it on their channel, and I think they have a festival later this winter. So it's simmering down a little bit, but I still have a bunch more film festivals to put it through.
Oh,
So I
nice.
don't think it's seen its rounds quite yet.
Yeah.
And then after this, I've got a bunch of really strange projects I'm working on. I don't know which ones are going to come to fruition and which ones aren't, but I've got a really cool rock climbing film. It's based outside of Boulder, and it's kind of a blend between rock climbing, base jumping, and skydiving. And it's really hard to explain, but if you ever see it, it'll make sense.
Okay.
But yeah, two of my friends are just incredible climbers and do all this stuff under the radar. They're also like work 48-hour week jobs at engineering firms. And so I'm filming with them doing all these crazy things. And then two of these girls I know in Boulder just broke another record that they've been working on. So I get to go back and shoot some ladies on it and
Nice.
get the other half in there. So that'll be cool.
Nice.
Yep, just gonna keep shooting and we'll see what happens.
Nice. Well, I hope you keep showing all the amazing women who are doing this crazy outdoor stuff. We see all these men doing, and I really love that you put your camera on some women doing it. It's really great.
Definitely, it's a fun place to be, and it's like really fun to shoot something that you're passionate about.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's the one thing about whenever I see these outdoor action films, everyone's having a really great time. You're all having fun doing that.
No other way to do it.
That's right. And Brady and Des, how about you guys? Does For the People have some other places people can see it? And are you working on anything else?
For the People's also going to be showing at the Portland Film Festival, which I think is happening over the next month. I think it's opened up today. It's all virtual. So the Bend and the Portland Film Festivals, and then I've been trying to find like a food publishing partner for it for a while, and working with a PR firm with that, just trying to find a way to like get the film out there a little bit more. And then both Des and I work in the conservation space. I make a lot of films for conservation groups, and Des is a writer who also works for a conservation group full time. And so we're sort of trying to expand that a little bit more.
Great.
And then there's also a music documentary that's in the works that is too early to really share too much detail yet, but I'm really excited about that one if I can pull it off.
Oh, good. We'll look forward to that. And Kendra, how about you? What are what are your plans for this film? And is there anything else you're working on?
Yeah, it just show and won Best Documentary Short at Lady Filmmakers Festival down in LA last week, and has a couple more festivals that we're waiting to hear back on. I'm also starting my first feature right now. We're in the middle of production, early production, COVID off and on production, about Ouija boards. So it's a completely different thing. Yeah, it's a documentary about the history and lore and the users of Ouija boards, and it's going to have a whole bunch of really interesting things. We started out as a short, and it actually turns out there's a lot of fun, interesting people and stories around Ouija boards. So we're working on that right now. It's going to be called Ouija Mania, and it's going to come out in hopefully next year.
That's great.
I know, it's totally different, completely different.
Very different. Well, I want to thank you all. I realize this is when there's this many filmmakers, it can kind of be hard, and trying not to take up everyone's time. I so appreciate you all joining us for this conversation, and really appreciate these films you've brought to the Bend Film Festival for us to share. And it was just a wonderful program. And I'm excited that you all will get to see these films,
Can't wait.
each other's films, because really they really wonderfully kind of come together. And I imagine in this conversation wondering how your film about bicycling to the top of Moab fits with selling pho in Portland, but during the pandemic. But they really kind of come together and show this beautiful, wonderful, hopeful showcase of wonderful women to be inspired by. So thank you all so much for joining us with the Bend Film Festival, and congratulations on this beautiful, beautiful work by you all.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
So much.